All right, we're at the Great Sand Dunes National Park. Right behind us, we're right at the entrance. I'm going to do a little bit of a review of everything that goes on inside here. But otherwise, pretty fantastic destination if you've not been. Totally worth it. The Piñon Flats Campground is where we're staying. It's pretty tough to get a reservation. You got to get on it about 6 months ahead if you're going to try and do it. We had to book 2 different spots. That's what it takes to end up getting that space. Totally worth it. We just moved the camper one night. You could totally stay with a tent as well. On the reservation page, it is marked. Heading on into the Great Sand Dunes. Hey guys, welcome. So we are currently at the Sand Dunes, another fantastic camping site that we have here in Colorado. The Sand Dunes are pretty fantastic to visit. Only here are you going to get somewhere where you have basically snow-capped peaks in the background, as well as the Sahara Desert, basically. First time we came out here, I couldn't help but smile and just the awe and the beauty of it all. Typically, we're coming out in May or early June. That way we can catch that seasonal creek that runs through the dunes from that snow runoff. It's pretty awesome to see. It creates kind of a break, a tide, as the sand builds up and then it flows. But otherwise, it's not very high water or anything like that. The water does get pretty warm because it's thin and it's sitting on top of that sand that's definitely radiating that heat. If you haven't been out here, I suggest you make it out. It's totally worth the trip. It's just outside of Alamosa, about 40 minutes outside of Alamosa. It is a national park, so if you've got a Colorado States park, that does not apply. You'll need a national parks pass for that. They do have a water station right when you enter the park, so if you're towing a camper or anything and you don't want to tow your water, you've got that right as you come into the park. They've got a dump station right there as well, so if you used your facilities on the way in, you could go ahead and dump right before you head to your campsite. Once you're at your campsite, there are no hookups though. At Piñon Flats Campground, there are 0 hookups. There's no electricity. There is no sewage. So you do have to be prepared for that. There are also limitations as far as generator use and the hours that you're allowed to use that. With our camper, we don't have a problem with that as we have a battery that can last the entire time and a solar panel that helps as well. For any of the bigger things, we do have a generator, but we typically don't need to use it. So something to consider though. They released the dates for this campground 6 months out, every single day, 6 months out. So you got to really be on it. If you have a very specific weekend in mind, you got to be on top of it to be able to get that booked, especially during that seasonal creek flow, because that's when everybody wants to come out here. So on our previous stay, we were able to get 1 block at one site. This year, we were only able to get 1 night at that same site that we stayed the previous year, but then we were able to get 2 nights at the next site over, which that site ended up having a much better view anyway, so that was pretty awesome. Something to consider there as well, those sites at the bottom towards the sand dunes are going to have the best views, of course, because they're not going to have any trees or anything like that, so just more of your preference or what's available. You could see that map on the recreation.gov website when you're booking those. You can see kind of where those sites are set out. Lots of stuff going on in this campground, though. There is an amphitheater. We'll do some sort of shows and stuff. We've never seen them because we're typically here during the seasonal flow, and the campground has not actually opened for full season. At the center of the sand dunes, there's a big parking lot where you can kind of just come for the day, or you could drive down from the campsite if you didn't walk. There are bathrooms, changing station. There are water stations to be able to rinse off all the sand. But when we come, those typically are not actually turned on yet. So those are typically only on during the summer. So again, something to consider. You're going to be covered in sand. So your kids are going to be covered in sand. And how are you going to clean that up? Bring plenty of towels, potentially some water to help wash and get all that off. You're still going to find sand later because that's how sand works. Each of the campsites has a fire ring, has a picnic table, and is paved for your vehicle. Some of the campgrounds are just barely a pull off of the road. So if it's one of the tent sites, you've probably got about 3 to 4 feet where you kind of pull off to the side and your campground is up some steps behind it. So you're not really pulling into your campsite. Your car is just kind of at the road and your campsite is basically just up the few feet from that. Tucked into some trees, typically they're fantastic spaces. As far as space available for RVs and trailers and all that, you got to look at that as well because they do have a limit as far as how long your rig can be. Our total length is only 24 feet with hitch to bumper, so ours fits perfectly fine on most of those trailer sites. Certainly we couldn't use any of the tent sites, but something to consider. You got to be able to fit your vehicle and your camper inside that space. All of that information, of course, is available on the recreation.gov website, and you can see each site has a different requirement of space. On Loop 3, there's a big group camping section, so if that's something you guys are interested in, that is all for tents, but you could do bigger groups. So if you've got, Boy Scouts or anything like that, you could do things like that up there. So there are two main loops to this campground. Loop 1 is what's going to get you closer to the sand and those fantastic views, definitely on the outside of that in the 30s. And then Loop 2 is where we've stayed each time, and the views are still fantastic. You're more in the trees, but you have perfect views of the dunes, which I'll show you some of those. There are some campsites that are a bit more treed. You can see some of those pictures on the website and try and make your best guess, but you don't really know until you get here. Most of them do have a pretty good view, though. Some of the tent sites are more tucked into the trees and won't necessarily have that view, but just a couple steps out of your campsite and you're going to be right in the middle of all of it. So we actually had to book 2 different campsites because there was no availability with a straight through trip. So right now I'm taking the opportunity to run over and go ahead and dump the tanks, and then we will come back and set up at the new spot. But while I'm doing that, I figured I'd go ahead and highlight the tanks and the water that are available here as well. All right, guys, so we're at the dump station. Nothing fun about that, but something that's got to get done, of course. At this station at the sand dunes, we just have one shared spot on either side, so you do have to wait turns, even if you pulled in from either side. But that's kind of how the line works, of course. Down here, you have the green for the clean out water. And then down there, you have the blue for the potable water. So I just filled up the water tanks so that we have enough for the rest of our trip. But so you don't have to tow water out here. You could totally just fill up right there at that blue. And again, you can dump on the way out or in between if you're like us and you have multiple sites that you've booked. But yeah, just look at that backdrop. Even while you're doing your dump, pretty fantastic. Just past this dump station, there's also an air right here for your tires. So if for some reason you're having issues with any of your tires, you need to fill up air, they do have an air station right here as well. So pretty convenient should that issue arise. All right, now we're at another site. We're at site 86. I'm making some lunch for the family. As you can see, pretty fantastic view here. The dunes are right in the background, and it's also mixed camping. You could do a tent, you could do camper. They list on the website when you're booking them which one is which. Guys, just look at these views behind me. Camping with basically the Sahara Desert in the background, and then you got the Rocky Mountains just on the other side over here with snow-capped peaks. Pretty fantastic. This site is 86. We just spent one night in 83 and now we're in 86. That's just kind of how the booking went. Couldn't get 2 in a row. This site is nicer than 83. As you'll see, the steps on 83 are a little sketchy where you park your camper. And if your kids are climbing up and down, I've got a 1-year-old that's trying to go up and down those. So definitely got to be on top of that. But if that's the site you get, still fantastic. This one's got a little bit better view, a little bit less shade though. So something to consider as well. We're gonna knock out some lunch and then we're gonna go hit the dunes. So here's out in the actual dunes. I mean, where else can you go? You have white peaks. And then the Sahara Desert right here. Pretty awesome. It's quite a bit windy out here, getting pelted with some sand, but lots of people are hiking up to the top. You got Morning Star, I think is the name of the tallest one. But definitely saw some people up there this morning. The sand is pretty hot. Just baking in the sun. We do have the flow going on right now as well. So here's the actual flow, the creek, the seasonal creek that comes down from the snowmelt. The water is actually really warm at this time. Last year we came and it wasn't so warm, but this time the water is really warm. As you can see, the tides kind of builds up on some sand and breaks. The water level is a bit higher yesterday. Looks like it settled in, but we're still not even at peak flow season, typically the end of May. About a 2-week span, May and maybe into June, just depending on weather, but pretty fantastic. Lots of fun for the kids. All right, so part of this, I got the dreaded dropped audio, as you can see in this video here, but I wanted to call out that near the sand dunes is the Zapata Falls. You actually pass it on the way in. It's about 6 miles or so ahead of getting to the entrance of the sand dunes. It's about a half-mile hike. It's super easy. We do it with our toddlers. Nothing complicated, as you can see in the video there, but totally worth making the stop as well to get up and see those falls. But the rest of this audio will cut in now. All right, so just up this creek is the actual Zapata Falls. At this time, it's currently frozen, so you can only see partial of one fall there. But normally you can climb up past it to a second one. It takes a bit of climbing, so it's not something you necessarily will take on unless you're capable. It's a little slippery and stuff. It's not really hard, but if you have any type of limitations, I wouldn't necessarily press it, but it's just a big cold pool up there that you got to walk through, and then you can literally stand right under the waterfall. So it's pretty neat. But otherwise, we're here pretty early. It's middle of May, just past Mother's Day weekend, and definitely pretty cold. Again, that waterfall is completely frozen and water's shooting out the bottom. So this is about 4 miles before you hit the sand dunes. So totally something you can do while you're here visiting the dunes, or just in the area of Alamosa or whatnot. So up to the left of the trail at the top of the Zapata Falls, there's also a clearing up here, a little pool. But otherwise you can do a lunch up here or break for whatever. There's also a view of the sand dunes back here that you can observe. And over here on the other side of this clearing, depending on the season, sometimes they have this open, but right now it's all pooled up. The water's super cold, so not that it was something you would get into, but definitely pretty to look at. Lots of stuff to do up here. Definitely worth the half-mile trek. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this video was a benefit to you, and I hope you can make it out to the sand dunes and enjoy it for yourself. If you liked my video and you like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.